Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The long wooden surface stretched between men with clipped voices and heavier boots, their shoulders hunched with the weight of plans. Papers rustled. Radios crackled faintly. The air smelled of coffee left too long in metal pots. She sat at the far end, her hands folded tightly in her lap, saying nothing. She had spoken once before, offered a thought, a correction, maybe even a warning. They didn't hear it, or maybe they chose not to. Her silence after that was louder than their words. She looked at the map spread out, the circles drawn in red, the black arrows slashing across borders like scars. She knew what those marks meant. Targets, routes. Men would die there. Maybe some of these very men in the room. She wanted to say something again, to point out the blind spot, but her tongue pressed against her teeth, holding back, and the weight of being dismissed before had its own sharpness. She had learned silence could protect her, at least for now. The commander's voice cut through. We move before dawn. That was all that mattered to them. Motion, deployment, the next operation. She wasn't supposed to ask why not here, not as someone who had barely been counted at all. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The meeting dissolved in scraping chairs and murmurs about gear. Boots echoed in the narrow corridor outside. One by one they filed out. She lingered behind, eyes still tracing the red circle on the map, a village on the edge of nothing, caught in the shadow of everything. She knew that place, knew it better than any of them realized. The memory tightened her chest like a vice. A smell, smoke, the sound of a door splintering in the night. Her mother's voice hushed into silence. She closed her eyes and swallowed. No, not here, not now. One of the younger sergeants glanced back. His eyes lingered on her for a beat longer than necessary. Not recognition, not suspicion, maybe curiosity, maybe pity. Then he turned and left her in the room with the maps, the papers, the fatting hum of the overhead light. She straightened her shoulders. She had been counted out before, always, before the war, before the training, before this table. Men like these thought silence meant absence, but she carried her silence differently, like a weapon. Out in the courtyard, the night air slapped cold against her skin. Trucks idled, headlights cutting pale beams through dust. The engine's growl set a rhythm in her chest. She walked past them unnoticed, her steps measured, her breath even. The men were busy checking rifles, trading small jokes, pretending not to be afraid. She caught fragments of words. Home by Christmas. If the weather holds. If command doesn't screw this up. She almost smiled. Fear always dressed itself as humor. One of them, a tall corporal, tried to catch her eye. He half laughed, half asked, "You even packed enough ammo for this one?" His tone was mocking, but underneath she heard the thin edge of his own unease. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. His laugh faded quickly. The barracks were dim when she returned to her bunk. She sat for a moment on the edge of the bed, listening to the hum of the fluorescent light, the occasional creak of metal springs as soldiers shifted in their sleep. Her rifle leaned against the wall. She cleaned it every night, not because it was required, because ritual steadied her hands. She pulled the cloth across the barrel, movement slow, almost tender. This was how she prayed. Each pass of the cloth was a memory she didn't say aloud. Each click of the bolt sliding into place was a promise to the faces she had lost. She whispered under her breath, a language only the dead could hear. The night stretched. She slept little. Dreams were dangerous. Before dawn, the camp stirred. Voices low, gear strapped, helmets secured. She stepped into line with them, unnoticed at first, just another shadow among many. The sky was heavy with the color before sunrise, that pale gray that makes everything look like a faded photograph. Engines roared to life, trucks jolted forward, the convoy moved. She sat on the hard bench of the transport, knees tight, hands steady on her weapon. Across from her, two men whispered to each other. One rubbed a photo between his fingers, his wife and newborn child smiling up at him through smudged gloss. He caught her glance, then looked away quickly, as if embarrassed she had seen his tenderness. The other soldier closed his eyes and mouthed words silently, a prayer perhaps, though no sound came. They weren't just soldiers. They were men who carried their own small worlds, fragile and breakable, into this one that demanded silence and sacrifice. The road stretched on, dust trailing behind them, mountains rising distant like stern witnesses. The sun climbed slowly, the world sharpening in light. But in her chest, a knot remained, because she knew what waited at the end of this road. The red circle on the map wasn't just a target, it was her past. She had seen that village once in flames, seen its narrow alleys choke with smoke, heard the cries that went unanswered. That was the night she learned silence wasn't weakness, it was survival. She was still carrying that silence now, years later, into this convoy. And though the others didn't know it, this mission was more than another line in their orders. For her, it was the unfinished sentence she had never spoken. The convoy slowed, radios hissed. The men shifted in their seats, nerves tightening like drawn strings. She inhaled slowly, feeling the air burn cold in her lungs. Someone muttered, "Why's it so quiet?" She heard it too. No birds, no dogs, just the low grind of the engines. Silence spread over them like a shroud. The truck stopped, doors slammed open, boots hit dirt. The village stood ahead, still and watchful, its houses leaning tired against one another, windows empty eyes. The wind carried faint smells, ash, earth, the distant tang of something metallic. She stepped down, her boots sinking slightly into dust. The sun now spilled gold across broken rooftops, making ruins glow like relics. Orders were given. Men spread out, rifles raised. Her eyes scanned the narrow street, her pulse steady but sharp. She knew these paths, every bend, every shadow, and somewhere inside one of those houses was the answer she hadn't spoken. But she stayed silent, for now. The mission had just begun. What did she expect to find in those empty windows? The village looked abandoned, yet it carried the kind of silence that never felt safe. Dust hung in the air as if holding its breath. The men spread out, rifles aimed, boots crunching softly against the dirt. Every step echoed louder than it should have. She moved with them, though her pace was slower, measured, as though her body remembered paths her voice could not admit to knowing. The corporal from the transport caught her glance. His eyes asked a question he didn't dare voice. "Why are you so calm?" She looked away. He wouldn't understand. None of them would, not yet. The commander raised his hand, signaling the team to stop. The crackle of the radio cut through the stillness, a faint hiss of static. No movement, no contacts. The words didn't reassure anyone. No movement meant nothing or everything. She scanned the rooftops. The sun had climbed higher now, heat pressing down on their helmets, light casting sharp shadows that could hide 100 secrets. A faint breeze stirred a curtain in one of the windows. Her breath caught. For a moment she saw something, or thought she did. A figure, a flicker of color. Then it was gone. The corporal whispered, "Thought I saw something." She didn't answer. She wasn't ready to share what her eyes had recognized. The commander motioned forward. The men moved in pairs, clearing doorways, sweeping alleys. She followed, her steps light, her rifle steady. Her mind wasn't here entirely. It was back then. Back when these same streets had been filled with screaming. She had been younger then, unarmed, helpless. She remembered the night the soldiers came, faceless in their helmets, their shouts sharp and foreign. She remembered her father's voice raised, then silenced by the crack of a rifle. She remembered hiding under the broken stairs, pressing her hand over her mouth so tightly her nails cut her skin. Her mother's eyes had found hers once through the smoke, wide, wet, begging. Then the fire consumed everything. The memory came like a blade pressed against her throat, and still she walked forward. The first door gave way under a boot, empty. A table overturned, a kettle rusting in ash. Another house, nothing but broken glass and the smell of rot. The men's mutters grew more uneasy with each empty room. One soldier spat into the dirt, shaking his head. They cleared out days ago, maybe weeks. But she knew better. Villages like this never really emptied. People hid, in cellars, behind walls, in silence. She felt it, that quiet heartbeat beneath the dust. The corporal's voice broke the stillness. "Ma'am, you seeing what I'm seeing?" He pointed toward a doorway down the narrow lane. A scrap of cloth moved there, half hidden. The commander barked an order. 2 men advanced, rifles up. "Show yourself." The doorway trembled. A child stepped out, no older than 7. Thin, dirt smeared across his face, eyes wide as a cornered animal. His hands shook as he raised them high. The men lowered their rifles only slightly. Relief and unease mixed in the air. One muttered, "Kid, alone." But she knew he was. Children never wandered empty ruins alone. She stepped forward slowly, lowering her rifle, crouching to meet the boy's eyes. "It's all right," she whispered, though she wasn't sure he understood her words. Her tone mattered more than the language. She held out a hand. His gaze flicked to it, then back to her face. The commander shifted impatiently. "We don't have time for this. Keep moving." But she didn't move. Not yet. The boy's lips trembled. His eyes darted toward the alley behind him, then back to her. Fear burned in his stare. It wasn't fear of them. It was fear of what followed. And in that glance she knew. She rose to her feet, rifle ready, eyes fixed on the dark alley beyond the child. Silence deepened. Even the wind stilled. The men felt it too now. Tension drew every breath tight. Then came the sound, faint at first, boots against stone, slow, purposeful. The boy bolted, vanishing back into the shadows. Shouts erupted, rifles aimed. From the alley spilled figures, not children, not villagers, but men with weapons, their faces wrapped in cloth, their eyes hard. Ambush. Gunfire cracked the silence apart. The street exploded into chaos. Bullets sparked against walls. Men shouted, ducked, returned fire. The commander bellowed orders lost in the roar. Dust rose like smoke around them. She moved without hesitation, not rushing, not reckless, but precise. Her rifle barked once, twice. 2 men dropped. She pivoted, scanning, her pulse steady, her breath even. Inside her, memory and present blurred. This street had once been her nightmare. Now it was her battlefield. The corporal crouched near her, firing wildly. "We're pinned. They knew we were coming." Of course they did. She wanted to say it. She wanted to shout it. But instead she reloaded, eyes sharp, breath measured. The child's face flickered again in her mind. He hadn't betrayed them. He had warned her silently in the only way he could. She understood that kind of silence. The commander signaled retreat, waving men back toward cover. They pulled behind a crumbled wall, dust filling their lungs. 2 soldiers were down, one unmoving, the other crying out as blood spread across his sleeve. For a moment quiet returned, not peace, the kind of quiet that comes before the next strike. The corporal's chest heaved. He spat dust, glancing at her. "How the hell did you stay so calm out there?" She didn't answer. She couldn't tell him the truth, that she had lived this silence before, that every gunshot was an echo of her past. The commander's voice cut sharp. They were waiting. Someone tipped them. His eyes swept over the group. Suspicion flickered. Paranoia always came fast after ambushes. His gaze lingered on her a beat too long. Her stomach tightened, but her face stayed still. She said nothing. The injured soldier groaned. She knelt beside him, pressing her hands against the wound, steady, firm. His eyes met hers, wide with pain, with fear. "Don't let me die," he whispered, voice breaking. Her throat tightened. She pressed harder. "You won't." The words came soft, certain. Whether she believed them or not didn't matter. He needed her silence broken in that moment. He needed her voice to hold him. The firefight eased, the enemy retreating into the maze of alleys, their footsteps fading like ghosts. But the damage was done. The men's faces were pale, sweat-streaked, eyes darting with unease. 2 dead, 1 wounded, a mission already unraveling. The commander slammed his fist against the wall. "We regroup, we push forward, we don't turn back." His voice carried force but not conviction. The corporal whispered near her, low enough no one else could hear. "We're walking into a trap, aren't we?" She didn't answer him either. She couldn't, because the truth was heavier than her words. The red circle on the map had never been just a target. It was a warning, a graveyard painted in ink. And as she looked at the men around her, tired, shaken, some already broken, she wondered how many of them would still be standing when this silence finally broke. Why did her instincts scream louder than every order shouted around her? The convoy of men pressed forward, moving like shadows through the cracked alleys. Dust hung in the sunlight, coating boots, rifles, and the tension that radiated from every soldier. She kept her pace measured, eyes scanning the fractured rooftops, the debris-littered streets. Something about this village smelled wrong, not smoke, not rot, but the weight of hidden eyes. The quiet that had followed the ambush was not empty. It was deliberate, waiting. She remembered the child's glance. Thin, wide-eyed, knowing more than he should have. He had disappeared back into the ruins, and though she didn't follow, his presence lingered, a silent warning. The corporal fell into step beside her again. "This place gives me the creeps." His voice was low, almost apologetic. He hadn't stopped looking at her since the firefight. You seem to know it better than the rest of us." She didn't respond. She never did. Not to him, not to anyone. Knowledge like hers carried its own weight. Sharing it could change nothing or everything. Ahead, the street forked into narrow alleys, each lined with broken walls and houses like tired sentinels. The commander motioned left, men following with cautious steps. Every creak, every shifted stone made her pulse tighten. She reached the first doorway. Her fingers brushed against the cracked wood, tracing its shape as if remembering. Memories came unbidden, a mother's voice whispering through smoke, a father's shadow vanishing in flames. She swallowed the ache, forcing herself back into the present. Footsteps approached behind her. A soldier new to the mission glanced at her. "Ma'am, shouldn't we?" "Focus," she interrupted softly but firmly. He froze, nodding, eyes wide. She did not shout. She did not need to. Silence here was authority. The alley stretched ahead, twisting like a question without an answer. She led the way, rifle raised, every muscle taut. The wind carried faint smells, earth, ash, a metallic tang that made her stomach coil. She recognized it. Something had been buried here, something waiting to be unearthed. The men moved cautiously. The wounded soldier from the firefight leaned against the wall, breathing hard, trying to mask his fear. She glanced at him, then down the alley. She wanted to reassure him, wanted to offer words that might steady his shaking hands, but the only thing she could give him was presence, calm, silent, unyielding. A sudden clatter echoed from a side street. Men froze, rifles raised. Dust puffed from a knocked-over barrel, nothing more. Her heart didn't skip. Her eyes narrowed. The village had taught her the sound of false alarms and real threats. She took a careful step forward. "Stay sharp," the commander muttered, though his own voice trembled slightly. They rounded a corner. The alley opened into a small square. Broken carts lay overturned. Rusted tools glinted in sunlight. And there, at the far end, a figure crouched, shadows hiding more than revealing. Her breath caught. She recognized the stance immediately. Someone waiting, watching, calculating. The men raised rifles, voices sharp, questions shouted in panic. She stepped forward, rifle steady, eyes locked on the figure. "Wait," she said, voice soft, measured. The men froze. The figure shifted, revealing a thin face, sunburned, eyes wary but familiar. A woman. Her chest tightened. She hadn't expected anyone else. Not here, not now. The woman straightened slowly, hands raised, showing she carried nothing but a rifle slung low. "I'm alone," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes held a fire that matched the protagonist's own. Something inside her softened. Recognition, maybe, or relief. Another survivor, another soul who had endured. The commander stepped forward, suspicion plain on his face. "Identify yourself." The woman raised her hands higher. "I'm part of the resistance. I've been here watching, waiting for you. The others," her voice faltered. "The others didn't make it." The men's murmurs rose. Some glanced at each other uneasily. Some lowered their rifles, uncertain whether this new figure was friend or foe. She stepped closer, keeping her rifle ready but not aimed. "How long have you been here?" Her voice was calm, almost comforting, though every word carried steel. "Since the attack," the woman replied, eyes darting toward a ruined doorway. "Weeks. I've been surviving, keeping people alive when I could, hiding them from them." Hearing those words made something deep inside her ache. She understood the weight of hiding, of surviving while others fell. She had been counted out before, dismissed, overlooked. Yet here they were, both women, surviving, watching, bearing the silence of those lost. A sudden shout cut through the air. Another squad of enemy soldiers emerged from a side alley, rifles raised. Instinct flared. She ducked behind a crumbled wall, signaling the others to take cover. The resistance woman moved with her, quick, precise, like they had rehearsed some invisible choreography. Bullets tore through the dust, sparks flaring against brick. Men screamed, ducked, returned fire. She moved deliberately, scanning, calculating, protecting the wounded and the new ally. The corporal beside her shouted, "How are you so calm?" She didn't answer. Calm wasn't bravery. Calm was control. Calm was surviving when fear wanted to break you apart. The firefight raged for what felt like hours, though in truth it was minutes. The enemy retreated, leaving the square quiet again, dust settling over the chaos. The wounded groaned. The commander swore. Men scanned the horizon, restless and wary. She crouched beside the resistance woman. "You led them into the square?" she asked, voice low. The woman shook her head. "No, I tried to help where I could, protect anyone still here. I didn't know who you were until now." Her chest tightened, a mixture of relief and sorrow. They were both survivors, both carrying burdens no one could fully understand, and yet neither of them had counted themselves out. The child from earlier emerged from a side alley again, cautious, peeking around a corner. She bent down slowly, whispering, "It's all right." He hesitated, then ran toward her, trusting the calm in her voice more than the chaos around him. The wounded soldier managed a shaky smile. "Looks like we've got reinforcements," he muttered. The commander's eyes narrowed, suspicious, but he said nothing. He didn't understand yet that survival often came from alliances no one expected, from understanding the quiet signals that others missed. She glanced at the square, at the ruined carts, at the dust rising like ghosts. The village held secrets. They always did. And now, with another survivor beside her, she felt the weight of her mission shift. It wasn't just about completing orders. It was about protecting those who couldn't fight, about keeping the remnants of life intact amid destruction. The resistance woman spoke quietly. "They'll come back, and next time they won't wait for us to react." She nodded. "Then we prepare, and we stay silent until it counts." The sun climbed higher, burning the edges of broken walls, casting long shadows across the square. The wind stirred faintly, carrying dust and memories alike. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, inhaling the air that smelled of ash, earth, and iron. She allowed herself a thought. "We may be counted out, but we are not finished." The men around her moved, uncertain yet obedient. The child clung near her side. The resistance woman mirrored her movements, silent, deliberate, a kindred spirit in the chaos. And though the commander did not yet understand, she felt the quiet authority in her own presence, the power of experience, survival, and silent resolve. The village waited. Shadows lingered in doorways. The wind whispered through broken streets. And somewhere just beyond the ruins, the memory of those she had lost brushed against her mind. But for the first time that morning she felt hope, not loud, not certain, but present, quiet, steady, like the rhythm of a heart that refuses to stop even in the dark. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Why did the wind carry whispers that only she seemed to hear? The square fell silent again, but she knew better than to trust silence. It never stayed empty for long. Dust settled on broken carts and the sun climbed, washing the ruins in harsh daylight. The child clung to her side, small, fragile, eyes wide, carrying fear that had no words. She could feel it, every tremble, every hitch in his breath. It mirrored the tremble she carried herself, even though her face remained calm. The resistance woman moved beside her, scanning the rooftops with sharp eyes. Her presence was a reminder that she wasn't alone, that survival sometimes required trust, though trust was dangerous here, and it didn't come easy. The men around them were tense. The corporal kept glancing at her, a mixture of awe and unease, as if he had seen something unspoken in her movements, something that said she had been through worse, something that said she would not fail. Footsteps echoed faintly from the far alley. She froze. Everyone froze. The commander barked positions, eyes on the exits. The men spread out, rifles up, each heartbeat loud in the quiet. She crouched low, scanning shadows. The figure approached slowly, a man older carrying a bag, hands raised. Dust clung to his clothes. His eyes were wary, pleading. "Please," he whispered, "I want no trouble." Her instincts screamed, "Check the bag, check him," but her mind hesitated. There was something familiar in the tilt of his head, the slump of his shoulders. She lowered her rifle slightly, signaling the others to wait. The resistance woman stepped forward. "He says he's alone, that he's been hiding, that no one else survived." The man dropped the bag and raised his hands higher. A few small items spilled: canned food, a water bottle, a folded piece of cloth, nothing threatening. She walked toward him slowly, careful, measured, every nerve on alert. "You've been hiding here for how long?" Her voice was soft but edged with steel. "Weeks, months," he replied. His voice shook. "I stayed because I wanted to live. I didn't want to see more die." She studied him. His fear was raw, unfiltered, but she understood. Everyone here carried fear like a second skin. Some hid it behind jokes, some behind orders, some behind silence. She carried hers differently, beneath measured calm, like a river running under ice. The child edged closer to her, curiosity overcoming fear. She knelt, offering a reassuring nod. The man's gaze flicked to the child, then to her, and something shifted, a fragile trust forming in the space between shared silence and survival. The commander broke the moment. "We don't have time for hospitality. Clear the square. Move to the northern perimeter. Check every building. Do it now." His tone demanded obedience, but beneath it lingered uncertainty. She glanced at the resistance woman. "We move as one, cover the child, watch each other's backs." The woman nodded. They stepped forward together, the child between them, forming a fragile line of defense. The men followed, reluctant but obedient. The alleys narrowed. Rubble crunched under boots. Dust rose in clouds with each step. She noticed details that others didn't: a footprint partially erased by wind, a faint smear of blood on a wall, a hinge swinging slightly on a door that had no reason to move. Her heart tightened. Someone had been here recently, not just hiding but watching, waiting. They reached a small courtyard hidden from the main street. Shadows pooled in corners, thick and dark. She moved forward first, scanning every nook, every crumbling wall. The child's small hand clutched hers, grounding her. A sudden sound, a sharp click, almost imperceptible, froze her. Her eyes darted to the corner of the courtyard. There, a trap, a tripwire, thin, almost invisible. She knelt, brushing dust away, revealing a pressure-triggered device. "Tripwire," she whispered, motioning the men back. "Careful, slow." They stepped aside, eyes wide. She disarmed the device with practiced hands, her movements precise, deliberate. The resistance woman watched her closely, nodding in silent approval. "Good," she said quietly, "but there may be more." Her chest ached with the memory of others who hadn't survived such traps, friends, strangers, villagers alike. Every disarmed device, every small victory, carried a whisper of guilt for those who hadn't made it. A man muttered behind her, voice tight with fear. "How do you always see this stuff?" She didn't answer. Experience, instinct, memory, they spoke louder than words. They continued, clearing the courtyard. She noticed subtle signs, disturbed dirt, marks on walls, faint footprints. Each clue was a thread leading to something larger. The resistance woman moved beside her, sharing glances, small nods, forming a silent communication without words. The northern alley opened into a ruined building. Inside, faint light fell through broken windows, casting jagged shadows. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams. The smell of earth and decay was stronger here, heavier, almost suffocating. They moved cautiously. She led, rifle up, ears attuned to every creak, every distant whisper of movement. Then she heard it, a soft whimper coming from the far corner. The child recognized it immediately, stepping forward, pointing. She followed his gaze. Behind a collapsed wall, a small figure shivered. Another child, younger than the first, eyes wide, trembling. Her chest tightened. The first child pressed closer to her, sensing the new presence. She knelt, voice soft. "It's all right, we're here, you're safe." The second child hesitated, eyes darting toward the shadows. She held her hand out steady. Slowly, the child crept forward, trusting her calm. The resistance woman helped gather supplies, sharing water and food. Small gestures, a bandage here, a whispered reassurance there, became a quiet act of defiance against the chaos surrounding them. Footsteps echoed again, this time heavier, deliberate. She froze, listening. Enemy patrol or another group of survivors? She couldn't tell yet. Her senses strained. The men tensed around her. She knew the answer before she could see it. From the top of the crumbled wall, a sniper's silhouette appeared, rifle trained on the courtyard. The glint of sunlight off the scope confirmed it. Her pulse quickened, but her hand stayed steady. She signaled to the men to drop low, moving the children behind cover. The sniper's eyes scanned, calculating, precise. She whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "Not today." Sliding along the wall, keeping low, she found an angle. Breath controlled, mind sharp, muscles relaxed but ready. She fired once. The shot echoed through the empty streets, a punctuation mark in the quiet chaos. The sniper's figure went down. The men exhaled collectively. Tension eased, but only slightly. The village was still alive with threats, both visible and hidden. She knelt beside the first child, brushing dust from his hair. "We move, together, no one left behind." The resistance woman nodded, "And we stay silent until it counts." Sunlight glinted off broken rooftops. Shadows shifted, hiding secrets. But for the first time in hours, maybe days, there was a small thread of hope weaving through the ruin. Sometimes survival isn't about courage, it's about patience. And sometimes silence carries more weight than a shout. Why did every heartbeat feel louder than the last? They moved through the village cautiously, shadows stretching long across broken walls. The first child clung to her side, fingers curled tightly around hers, trusting her calm even as fear rippled beneath the surface. The second child followed the resistance woman, small steps, careful, uncertain. The adults, her team, the men from the convoy, tried to match her pace, but none of them could move through the ruins like she could. She carried memory and instinct like armor, shielding herself and others simultaneously. A gust of wind stirred dust through the narrow alley. The sound was ordinary, yet to her it carried the weight of warning. Her eyes flicked to the rooftops. Nothing moved, but something had been watching, always watching. "Stay close," she whispered. Her voice was soft, yet every syllable carried authority. The men followed her instinctually, though they didn't understand why they trusted her so fully. The resistance woman gestured toward a half-collapsed building. "Supplies. If we can reach it safely, we'll have food and water for the children." She nodded, eyes narrowing. "We move carefully, nothing unnecessary, nothing sudden." The children didn't understand, of course. They just knew her presence meant safety. Each step forward was a delicate choreography, rubble shifted, walls leaned precariously, shadows pooled. Every sound, every breath mattered. They reached the building. The door hung loosely on its hinges. She entered first, rifle raised. The smell of mildew and dust hit her immediately. Footsteps from the second floor made her pause. Shadows moved above. Her muscles tensed. "Upstairs," the resistance woman whispered. She signaled the men to cover the entrance, then climbed the staircase slowly, each creaking step echoing through the empty building. The light filtering through broken windows painted jagged lines across the walls. Her eyes scanned everything: corners, doorways, windowsills. Every detail mattered. Halfway up she froze. Movement. A figure crouched on the top landing. She raised her rifle. The man froze too, his hands slowly lifting. A single word left her lips, calm, measured: "Stop." He obeyed. Slowly, cautiously, he stepped backward into a shadowed corner. The sun caught the edge of a knife at his side. "Why are you here?" she demanded, voice low but unflinching. He hesitated. I was protecting my family. They're still inside." His eyes darted nervously toward a boarded room. "I didn't want to fight, but I couldn't leave them." She studied him, recognizing the raw fear, the moral weight. Everyone here carried choices that had cost them sleep, sanity, sometimes lives. She lowered her rifle slightly, but not entirely. "We move quickly. You lead us to them, slowly, carefully. No one left behind." The man nodded, trembling. She motioned to the resistance woman, then glanced back at the children. They were watching, small eyes wide, trusting. She inhaled slowly. Fear pressed against her chest, but control had to come first. She had to model calm. They moved through the building. Dust coated every surface, floorboards groaning beneath weight. A faint sound came from the far room, crying. The man's family emerged, 2 women, one elderly, one younger, and another child. Relief flashed in their eyes as they saw her, though fear still lingered. The older woman whispered, "Thank you." She nodded, saying nothing. Actions mattered more than words. A sudden shout outside cut through the quiet. Enemy patrol approaching fast. She glanced at the team, calculating. The men were tense, uncertain, but she didn't flinch. She whispered to the resistance woman, "Cover the exits. We move through the back alleys. Keep the children close." The children clutched hands, wide eyes reflecting her steady gaze. She moved first, leading the way. The others followed, weaving through rubble, shadows, and dust. A burst of gunfire cracked through the air. Men dropped to the ground instinctively. She slid behind a low wall, scanning the perimeter. The enemy was closing, too fast, too determined. The corporal crouched beside her. "We're trapped," his voice trembled. She didn't answer. Calm didn't need explanation. She fired once, then twice. Movement froze, retreating, calculating, precise. The enemy faltered. She turned back to the children. They were safe for now, but she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. Each life she protected carried a shadow of guilt for those she couldn't save. The resistance woman whispered, "They'll be back, stronger." She nodded, "Then we'll be ready." Footsteps behind them. The man she had helped guided his family. He glanced at her, understanding dawning. Respect, trust, perhaps even gratitude. She said nothing, only signaled forward. As they emerged into the next alley, the sun slanting through the broken rooftops cast their shadows long and jagged. Dust swirled around them, a reminder of all that had been destroyed and all that they carried forward. The first child looked up at her, small voice trembling. "Will it be safe?" She knelt, holding his gaze. "We'll make it safe together." The older child, holding tightly to the resistance woman's hand, nodded silently. No words were needed. Trust had been forged in the heat of chaos, in the quiet acts of courage that spoke louder than any command. The men followed, weary but alive, the wounded among them limping forward. The commander's eyes swept over the group, suspicion and uncertainty battling with grudging respect. He didn't yet understand her methods. Perhaps he never would. But he could not deny the truth. She led not with authority alone, but with presence, foresight, and a quiet resilience that demanded recognition. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of smoke, dust, and iron. She inhaled deeply. The memory of the village's first attack pressed against her chest, but she held it at bay. This was survival. This was protection. This was action where words could not suffice. A sudden creak from above. They froze, shadows shifted, she scanned quickly. Another trap, an ambush, the past creeping into the present. She signaled everyone to stay low. The resistance woman mirrored her movements. The children huddled close. Her heart pounded, but she maintained control. Breath even, mind sharp, every instinct honed by years of experience. Nothing emerged. Only the wind, teasing the edges of broken rooftops, carrying the soft echoes of memory and loss. She exhaled slowly. Every step forward was victory. Every life preserved, a small defiance against the chaos surrounding them. And yet she knew the true danger had not passed. The village was alive with threats, seen and unseen, and every choice carried moral weight, the weight of protection, survival, and justice. She turned toward the men. "We move to the safe point, keep the children between us. No one left behind, silence until it counts." The resistance woman nodded. The men obeyed, still wary, still tense, still human in their fear. The children followed, small hands holding tight. She felt the quiet authority she carried ripple through them, not loud, not forceful, but undeniable. She had been counted out before, dismissed, underestimated. Yet here she was, leading, protecting, acting when others faltered. Sunlight spilled through cracks in the buildings, illuminating dust particles like tiny stars in the ruin. Shadows shifted. Footsteps echoed faintly. The village waited, holding secrets in its ruined walls. Sometimes, she realized, courage isn't loud. It's quiet, it's deliberate, it's measured. And sometimes silence carries more weight than any shout. She moved forward, leading the children and survivors through the broken streets, every step an act of defiance, every breath a testament to resilience. And in that quiet march, she understood a truth that no one had taught her. Survival, dignity, and courage are not always counted. Sometimes they simply act. Why did the shadows feel heavier now than any enemy gunfire? They moved cautiously through the village, the children tucked between her and the resistance woman. Dust rose with every step, coating boots, rifles, and the weight of anticipation that pressed down like iron. The men followed, tense, eyes scanning every ruined doorway, every shattered wall. Their fear was palpable, but hers was different, steady, deliberate, measured. A sudden clatter echoed from a nearby alley. She froze, every muscle coiled. She crouched, signaling the team to halt. The children pressed close, small hands gripping hers. The resistance woman mirrored her movements, eyes sharp, scanning. Nothing moved, just the wind lifting loose dust, carrying the faint scent of smoke and iron. She exhaled slowly, forcing the tension to ebb, but her pulse remained sharp. The village had taught her that silence was never empty. It was deliberate, waiting. The commander's voice cut through, clipped and wary. "Check it out," slowly. She led, rifle up, eyes tracing shadows. The men followed reluctantly, boots crunching over rubble, breathing tight. The alley ended in a collapsed wall. Behind it, faint movement. She signaled everyone to stay low, creeping forward. The resistance woman whispered, "Could be more of them." She nodded. She didn't flinch. Her hands moved instinctively, carefully, checking angles, clearing spaces before any step was taken. A figure emerged from the shadows, not enemy, not armed. A man, young, terrified, clutching a tattered bag. He froze when he saw them. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice low, deliberate. I'm hiding," he stammered. "I stayed in the ruins. I didn't know anyone was still alive." His eyes flicked toward the children. "I just wanted to survive." She studied him. Recognition, fear, and guilt flashed across his face, the same blend she carried herself. Survival had a cost. So did intervention. "Stay close," she instructed softly, not trusting him fully yet. She moved ahead, rifle sweeping, eyes alert. Every shadow a potential threat, every sound amplified. They reached a small courtyard. Rubble blocked parts of the exit. She scanned carefully. A glint caught her eye, a tripwire, almost invisible against broken stone. She froze, signaling everyone back. The men obeyed, albeit uneasily. She knelt, tracing the wire, heart steady but mind racing. Experience told her that one misstep here could cost lives. Slow, deliberate, she disarmed it. Another small victory, heavy with the knowledge of what could have happened. The resistance woman exhaled quietly. "You're incredible. How do you see all this?" She didn't answer. It wasn't brilliance. It was memory, instinct, and survival. It was lessons carved into her through pain, fear, and loss. The man followed, carrying his bag, careful not to step too close. The children shuffled behind, trust and fear entwined. A sudden shout erupted. Enemy patrol, too close, too fast. She dove behind a crumbled wall, signaling the team to do the same. Bullets kicked up dust around them. The corporal shouted, voice panicked. "We're pinned." Her pulse sharpened, but her movements remained precise. Calm was her weapon, breath even, muscles ready. She returned fire, picking angles, calculating every move. 1, 2 shots, enemy faltered, giving them a moment to breathe, to regroup. The commander barked orders, but his voice lacked certainty. They were human, but she had learned to be something more than human in these moments. A conductor of chaos, a steady hand in a storm. The resistance woman crouched beside her, whispering, "We need to get the children out, now." She nodded. Every step forward was deliberate, measured. The children flinched at every noise, but her presence steadied them. She moved first, guiding them through a narrow alley, the others following. A sudden flash, a figure on a rooftop, rifle trained, a sniper. She froze, pulse racing. The corporal panicked. Another one. She didn't flinch. Calm, measured, precise. She signaled the children down, motioning the resistance woman to shield them. Then she slid along cover, rifle steady, eyes locked on the threat, breath controlled, muscles coiled. One shot, the sniper slumped. Tension eased only slightly. Threats were still everywhere. The village was alive with danger, seen and unseen. She moved back to the group, scanning, evaluating. "We keep moving. No one left behind." They advanced, careful. Dust swirled around broken rooftops, sunlight slanting across rubble. Shadows shifted. Footsteps echoed faintly from a side alley. She signaled the team to pause, ears sharp, breath even. Something moved, not immediately clear if friend or foe. The man she had guided earlier stepped forward. "It's another survivor, my sister, she's alive." His voice trembled. She nodded, signaling him to lead them to her. The resistance woman glanced at her, approval in her eyes. They found the sister crouched in a ruined doorway, terrified, eyes wide. The children clung together, understanding the fear, the relief. She knelt, voice soft. "You're safe, come with us." Slowly, carefully, they regrouped. The children held hands, the survivors following, her steady presence anchoring them. A sudden explosion from the far side of the village shook the ground. Dust and debris rained down. Men cried out, scrambling for cover. The commander's voice barked, disoriented. She assessed quickly. Not panic, control, calm, precision. "Move to the next safe zone, keep together, follow me." The team obeyed. The children clung close, the survivors following. Every step, every breath mattered. She glanced back at the ruined rooftops, at the shadows, at the village that had been her nightmare and now her battlefield. She felt the weight of loss, the burden of responsibility, and the strange solace of action, acting when words could not suffice. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows. Dust lingered in the air. Every moment was tense but controlled. They were surviving, acting, defying the chaos. Sometimes courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's silent, deliberate, precise. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And she acted. Why did the village feel alive with secrets even as the sun dipped lower? They moved cautiously through the ruins, the children between her and the resistance woman, every step deliberate. Dust hung thick in the air, coating boots, rifles, and the tension pressing down on them all. Every heartbeat seemed amplified, every creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind a possible threat. She led, eyes scanning, instincts sharp, a quiet authority in every motion. The survivors she had gathered clung to the group, trembling but alive. The older man's hand shook around his bag. His sister kept glancing over her shoulder, unsure, fearful. The resistance woman stayed close to her side, eyes scanning every shadow. Even the corporal's nervous energy seemed to settle slightly in the presence of her calm. The sun slanted through broken rooftops, casting jagged shadows. Dust swirled around them, glowing faintly like embers caught in sunlight. She inhaled slowly, steadying her mind. Every instinct screamed that danger was near, yet control remained paramount. Panic would be contagious. Her presence needed to anchor them all. The alley ended at a small square. Rubble lay scattered, but it offered partial cover. She gestured for everyone to halt, scanning rooftops, windows, doorways. Her eyes caught movement, subtle, deliberate. A figure darted across the roof of a nearby building. Enemy or another survivor? She signaled the men to stay low. The resistance woman mirrored her movements. The children pressed close, sensing the tension. She exhaled slowly, calculating. Every choice mattered. The figure reappeared, rifle glinting in the last rays of sunlight. A sniper. Her pulse quickened, but her hand stayed steady. Calm was not absence of fear, it was mastery of it. She crouched, moving along cover, careful, precise. Breath even, muscles coiled. One shot. The sniper slumped. Tension eased slightly. The men exhaled collectively. The children's eyes widened, but they understood her calm better than any explanation could convey. "Keep moving," she whispered, voice soft but commanding. "No one left behind." They advanced cautiously, dust rising with each step. The village was alive with shadows and echoes. Every ruined wall, every broken rooftop was a reminder of lives lost and the thin line between survival and death. The older man she had guided earlier stumbled. She reached out, steadying him. His eyes met hers, gratitude and fear mingling in a silent exchange. No words were needed. She understood the weight he carried, the fear of failing those he loved. The resistance woman whispered, "We can't stop here. They'll regroup." She nodded, "Then we move together." The children clung closer, their small hands weaving through the adults' protection. She felt their fear, their hope, their trust. Each step forward was deliberate, measured, survival in motion. A sudden crash echoed from a nearby alley. She froze, instinct flared, the men tensed, the children flinched. Slow, deliberate, she moved toward the sound, rifle up, eyes sharp. The resistance woman followed, mirroring her movements. Dust swirled, shadows shifted. A collapsed wall revealed another survivor, a young woman trembling, eyes wide with terror. She knelt, voice soft, "You're safe, come with us." The woman hesitated, fear radiating from every movement. She glanced at the children, at the men, at her calm presence. Slowly, carefully, she stepped forward. They regrouped, now a fragile line of survivors, moving through the village like a single organism, each member trusting the other's instincts, each step weighted with consequence. Footsteps echoed behind them. Enemy patrol. They hadn't left the village entirely. She signaled everyone to halt, pressing them against cover. The resistance woman mirrored her movements, eyes sharp. A patrol appeared, rifles trained, voices harsh. She studied them, calculating. The men tensed, but she stayed still. Calm, precise, deliberate. She raised her rifle, sighting the lead soldier. One shot, silence. Another shot. The patrol faltered, confusion spreading. She signaled forward, "Move now," quietly, together. They advanced, shadows merging with dust and fading sunlight. Every ruined wall, every broken rooftop, every whisper of wind reminded her of those she had lost, those she couldn't save. The moral weight pressed against her chest, yet she remained steady. Action, not words, defined her courage. The children clung closer, the survivors following. The resistance woman stayed beside her, a silent partner in vigilance and care. They reached a partially collapsed building, a safe point for the moment. She signaled everyone inside, checking corners, scanning rooftops. Dust motes glimmered in the slanting light. The children sat close together, wide-eyed, quiet. She knelt beside them. "We're safe for now," she whispered, "but we can't stay, not yet." The older man approached her. How do you do it?" he asked, voice trembling. "Stay so calm, so precise." She looked at him, eyes steady. "Experience, memory, responsibility. Fear doesn't disappear, but it can be controlled. Actions speak when words fail." The resistance woman added softly, "And sometimes survival requires trust in others, even when it's hard." The children listened, understanding more than she expected. Trust had been forged in the fire of chaos. Every life saved, every careful step, every quiet act of courage was a testament to resilience. A sudden noise above drew her attention. Shadows shifted on the rooftops. Enemy patrol, perhaps regrouped, perhaps another trap. She crouched, assessing. Her pulse tightened, but control remained. Every breath measured, every movement deliberate. The men looked to her, uncertain, weary. She didn't flinch. Calm anchored them. She whispered to the resistance woman, "We prepare. Silence until it counts. We move together. No one left behind." The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across rubble and ruins. Dust settled, shimmering faintly like tiny stars caught in light. The village waited, alive with secrets, echoes, and threats. She exhaled slowly. Every step, every breath, every quiet act was survival. Every life preserved was defiance against the chaos surrounding them. And yet, the weight of those she could not save pressed against her. Sometimes courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. She stood, signaling the group forward. The children clung to her presence. The survivors followed. The resistance woman mirrored her movements. The men obeyed, weary but alive. Together they moved through the village, shadows merging with dust, every step an act of careful defiance. The night was coming, but for now they were still alive. And in the quiet, measured rhythm of survival, she found something unexpected: hope. Fragile, small, but undeniable. The village would test them again, she knew. But for this moment they moved as one. She led not with words, but with presence, experience, and quiet resolve. And in that she understood something profound. Survival, courage, and dignity are not always counted. Sometimes they simply act. Why did the last shadows feel heavier than all the ones before? The village lay quiet, but she didn't trust it. Every ruined wall, every broken rooftop held secrets, threats, and memories. Dusk coated everything, shimmering in the fading sunlight. The children clutched her hands and the resistance woman's, their small bodies vibrating with anxiety. The men followed, tense, weary, their breaths loud in the silence. She led the way, rifle up, eyes scanning, instincts sharp. Every step measured, deliberate. They had survived so far, barely, but the mission was not complete. The village still hid dangers that could unravel everything in seconds. Ahead, a ruined church loomed, its steeple fractured, windows shattered. Inside, she sensed movement. Shadows, whispers, waiting. Her pulse tightened. Every nerve screamed. "Stay low," she whispered. The children pressed closer, silent. The men crouched behind her, rifles ready. The resistance woman mirrored her movements, eyes sharp, body tense. The entrance was partially collapsed. She surveyed the building, noticing footprints in the dust, the faint scuff of metal on stone. Someone had been here recently, enemy or survivor, she couldn't tell. She signaled the men to hold, moving forward slowly, rifle raised. The children followed, small hands clutching hers. The resistance woman moved beside her, a silent partner in vigilance. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Broken pews lay scattered, light filtering through shattered windows, creating jagged patterns on the floor. Every step echoed, magnified, dangerous. A sudden sound, a soft whimper from the far side of the nave. The children froze. She crouched, signaling them to remain calm. The men tensed, breath held. She moved forward, rifle sweeping, senses alert. Behind a collapsed altar, a small group of villagers, terrified, exhausted, huddled together. Children and elderly alike, eyes wide with fear and hope. Her chest tightened. She recognized the fear, the same fear that had followed her, stalked her, haunted her dreams. But there was also hope, fragile and trembling. "Come with us," she whispered, voice soft but firm. "You're safe now, we move together." They hesitated, glancing at the shadows. Enemy could be anywhere. She held her gaze steady, calm, deliberate, precise. Slowly, carefully, they followed. The children stayed close, hands intertwined. The survivors mirrored the cautious steps, trust forming quietly, silently. A sudden crash from above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Shadows shifted. Enemy patrol. She froze, calculating. One shot. The patrol faltered. She moved forward, guiding the group toward a side exit, silent, precise. Every heartbeat, every breath mattered. The men followed, uneasy yet trusting her instinct. The resistance woman stayed close, eyes sharp, body coiled. The children clung, small hands gripping. Outside, the sun had nearly set. Long shadows stretched across broken rooftops, streets, rubble. The village seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for judgment. The commander approached hesitantly. How do you do it? Lead like this, survive like this?" She didn't answer. Words were insufficient. Action spoke louder than commands or speeches. She had been counted out before, dismissed, overlooked. Yet here she was, leading, protecting, surviving. A faint sound, footsteps approaching from the far edge of the village. Enemy reinforcements, fast, calculated. She signaled everyone to move toward a narrow alley, offering partial cover. Bullets kicked up dust, screams erupted. The men ducked instinctively. The children pressed against her. She slid along rubble, precise, deliberate, firing when necessary, guiding them with each movement. The resistance woman mirrored her, protecting the children, moving with the same calm, measured authority. One final push. The group emerged from the alley into a small courtyard. The sky above was bruised with sunset. Dust hung in the air, glimmering faintly like embers. She signaled the group to stop. Everyone was alive, miraculously. The children looked up at her, eyes wide, exhausted, trusting. She knelt, voice soft. "It's over for now, we're safe." The resistance woman approached, nodding quietly. No words were needed. They had survived together, against odds, against fear, against despair. The commander finally spoke, voice low, respectful. "I underestimated you, all of you." She nodded, understanding that acknowledgement mattered less than action. Survival, courage, and resilience were measured in deeds, not recognition. The villagers, huddled together, whispered thanks. The children clung to her, seeking comfort, finding it in her calm presence. The wind stirred, lifting dust and echoes of the past. Memories pressed against her chest, faces of those lost, friends, comrades, innocents. Guilt, sorrow, and resolve intertwined. She stood, taking in the ruined village, the survivors, the quiet that followed chaos. Every shadow, every broken wall, every step forward carried weight, but also possibility. The first child tugged at her hand. "Will we be okay?" She knelt, holding his gaze, voice steady. "We'll survive, together, always, and we'll keep moving forward even when it's hard." The resistance woman placed a hand on her shoulder, small gesture, silent acknowledgement of shared struggle. The sun dipped below the horizon. Shadows merged with rubble, dust settled. The village remained, scarred but alive. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of survival and the fragile thread of hope. Every step, every quiet act of courage had carried them here. Every life preserved was defiance against the chaos surrounding them. Sometimes, she realized, courage isn't loud, it's quiet, deliberate, measured. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. She looked at the children, at the survivors, at the resistance woman, and then at the ruined village. Silence stretched around them. No cheers, no accolades, only the quiet understanding that they had endured. Her eyes closed for a moment, breath even, pulse steady. She had been counted out before, overlooked, dismissed. Yet here she stood, still acting, still surviving, still protecting. The night embraced the village, stars beginning to pierce the dark sky. Dust shimmered faintly, like tiny embers of memory and hope. And in that quiet, measured rhythm of survival, she understood something profound. True strength is often silent. True courage is deliberate. And dignity simply acts. She led the group forward through shadows and dust, each step a testament to resilience, to hope, and to the unspoken promise that even when counted out, they would endure. The village faded behind them, but the lessons remained. The weight of survival, the cost of courage, the quiet power of presence. Sometimes she whispered to herself, it's not about being seen. It's about acting, always acting. And in that, she had never been counted out at all.